person wants to take the step of actually disassociating themselves, wanting to be known no longer as one of Jehovah's Witnesses and have that known to the congregation, that would be a step they would take, and we would try to assist them if there was some way we could help them remain in the faith. But if they're adamant, then that would be their decision. But that's what's disassociation.
Yes, well, let's take the scenario where this woman feels so silenced and unhappy in the organisation as a consequence of what I set out. She decides to disassociate. And that then means, as it's put in the manual, making known a firm decision to no longer be one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Is that right?
That's right. That's disassociation, yes.
Yes. And as I understand it, the same consequences then flow insofar as how she's treated by the remaining congregants to if she had been disfellowshipped.
So that's because she has made that decision, not because the congregation has. The person who's disfellowshipped is disfellowshipped by the congregation for whatever actions that disqualified them. The person who disassociates himself, they personally decide on that action, knowing that the consequences of disassociation mean that they will be cutting themselves off from the congregation, not the other.
Yes, indeed. But you see in the scenario that I've painted for you that this person's feeling is so deep that she wishes to disassociate from the congregation. Now, the consequence of that is that those, as it said in the truth, being Jehovah's Witnesses, are not allowed to associate with the disassociated person. That's right.
That's true, but it's because of the person's decision. If they just remained inactive, if they just wanted to not be coming along to the meetings, then they can still have free spiritual association with any of Jehovah's people.
Yes, well, I'm dealing with the scenario, as you well appreciate, where this person, because of the way in which her abuse occurred and allegation was dealt with, she wishes to disassociate.
Okay.
And the consequence of that is that those who remain are not allowed to fraternize or converse with the disassociated person, not so.
I agree, yes.
Mr. O'Brien, what happens in the situation, well, I'll go back a step. Do the elders of a particular congregation accept an obligation to care for the safety of those in that congregation?
Yes, that's why they are shepherds, to care for the flock of God.
And if an allegation is made by a woman that she's been sexually abused, which the elders, or at least the Judicial Committee, or those investigating, accept is true, but there's not a second witness.
Yes.
In that situation, the elders would be continuing to accept the abuser as a member of that congregation, notwithstanding that they knew that he had sexually abused, wouldn't they?
Yes.
How does that, or how is that reconciled with any obligation they have to care for the safety of those in that congregation?
Well, then, I think it was explained by Mr. Spinks that in that situation, the elders would meet with the alleged abuser, even though it can't be proven. They would still have taken the victim's accusations to him or her, and then, as a result of that, would give very clear direction on what restrictions would apply to their association with children, with others in the congregation, and they would monitor that.
And would others in the congregation know that that person had those restrictions placed on them?
No.
That means that supervision is confined to when the elders or an elder is present and observes the abuser.
That's true, but if it was reported to the elders, it came to their attention that the person was in violation of the restrictions, well, then the elders would take firmer action. A person could even be disfellowshipped if they disregarded.
That's dependent upon the elder observing or
being reported.
Well, how's it going to be reported if the others don't know to report it?
Well, perhaps, yeah, I can't say. I don't know.
Well, it wouldn't happen, would it?
No.
Do you think that's a proper discharge of the obligation that you say they accept to care for the safety of that congregation?
Well, again, it's governed by that scriptural command or requirement that elders are not authorised to go beyond that, of that the matter be established at the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, so that they can take whatever care they feel is necessary to try to protect the congregation. But beyond that, unless there's a second witness to a similar type of event or the same, then the elders' hands are tied with warning the person. And
I'll take you to tab 120, that's Shepherds, a Flock of God, at page 115. It's Ringtail 116. See in paragraph 5, this chapter 10 is headed Matters Related to Disfellowshipped and Disassociated Ones. And then you'll see in paragraph 5 it says, disfellowshipped and disassociated ones are generally expected to make their own arrangements for transportation to and from congregation meetings. However, in some instances, a disfellowshipped or disassociated individual who is making a determined effort to regain a right standing with Jehovah may be in a situation that prevents him from obtaining transportation. It may be that he has no car and that family members or others are not able to help him. Perhaps he cannot afford public transportation or it is not available in his area. It may be that the distance involved, personal safety or severe weather makes it inadvisable to walk. In such cases of desperate need, the elders can determine whether some assistance may be provided. Such assistance would be viewed as similar to public transportation, in that there should be no fraternizing or conversing with the disfellowshipped or disassociated person. So that's the principle, isn't it? No conversing or fraternizing with a disassociated person.
that's correct, yes.
And then in the next paragraph, if members of the congregation are known to have undue association with disfellowshipped or disassociated relatives who are not in the household, elders should counsel and reason with those members of the congregation from the scriptures. So the position is that if a disassociated person is in the same household as a Jehovah's Witness on everyday matters in the household, there can be that association. But if they're not in the same household, the same rules apply as if they were not in the same family.
Yes, so with disfellowshipping and disassociation, if they live in the same household, then it's understood that it's referring then to spiritual association. Obviously, if it's a husband or wife or child or mother or father, of necessity there has to be conversation. But it's the spiritual association that would now be restricted.
But if they're not in the same household, then social association is also restricted.
Yeah, kept to a minimum at least.
Yes. And you see there's then a reference there, review with them information from God's Love Book, pages 207 and 208. I'd like to take you to that. Part of this document is already in the tender bundle, but not this part.
Thank you.
And so we do understand that these pages here, 207 and 208, are the guidance that's being referred to at what we were looking at a moment before. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And you'll see halfway down page 207 starting on the right-hand side, it says the Watchtower of September 15, 1981, page 25, stated, a simple hello.
Sorry, I've just missed where you are. Oh, you're in the paragraph 2.
Yes, halfway down the page.
Yes, okay.
The Watchtower in 1981 stated, a simple hello to someone can be the first step that develops into a conversation and maybe even a friendship. Would we want to take that first step with a disfellowshipped person? Now, we to understand that is applying also to a disassociated person, aren't we?
Yes.
Is strict avoidance really necessary? The question's asked. Yes, for several reasons. First, it is a matter of loyalty to God and His Word. We obey Jehovah not only when it is convenient, but also when doing so presents real challenges. Love for God moves us to obey all of His commandments, and so on. And at the foot of the next page, 208, starting the second line from the bottom, you'll see it says, loyal Christian family members do not look for excuses to have dealings with a disfellowshipped relative. Now that applies also to a disassociated relative, not living at home.
Yes.
Rather, loyalty to Jehovah and His organization moves them to uphold the scriptural arrangement of disfellowshipping. Their loyal course has the best interests of the wrongdoer at heart and may help them to benefit from the distance received. And indeed, there are other publications that set out these forms of principle, aren't there?
That's true, yes, that's an understanding I have.
Yes. Now, the consequence in the scenario that I put to you is that this survivor of abuse who wishes to leave the organization is put to a choice, isn't she? She either stays in the organization or she leaves and thereby potentially loses her whole family, or much of it, depending on how many remain in the witnesses, and her social network.
No, I think there's that other option that you've missed there is by just ceasing her activity in the congregation.
Well, I'm presupposing, Mr. O'Brien, that her feeling is sufficiently intense that she wishes to disassociate from the organisation.
Yes, so then she would appreciate the implication of that.
Yes, and her friends and family would face the implication too that they would have to disassociate from her.
Yes.
It's an impossible choice, isn't it? I mean, no one, is it not right, Mr. O'Brien, should be put to the choice of remaining in an organisation which she feels is protective of her abuser and losing her family and social network.
Well, I can only be guided by what the scriptures say on that.
Well, do you accept that it's psychologically devastating and cruel?
The whole purpose of disfellowshipping or disassociation is to help the person see the benefits of associating. So a disassociated person, a disfellowshipped person, is free to come back. A disassociated person particularly, they don't have to go through a lengthy procedure to come back, whereas a disfellowshipped person has to prove their repentance suitably.
Well, it makes your organisation a captive organisation, doesn't it?
I don't follow what you mean by that.
Well, it makes it incredibly hard for someone to leave because of the huge pain, suffering, cruelty that she must face if she does leave.
I don't believe so.
Do you appreciate, Mr. O'Brien, that this point of shunning, as it's called, is the one that probably makes people the most angry around the world amongst the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses?
But if it's disassociation, again, it's a choice they make. They don't have to disassociate themselves to stop associating. They don't lose their spiritual or
I can see
familial association by being inactive.
I can see you might get some support for it by the manner in which first century Christians organized themselves. But is it justified in today's world and today's morality to treat people in this way?
Well, personally, what is accepted as today's morality in many ways, I wouldn't say is acceptable to a Christian.
Your Honour, I tender the branch organisation, January 2015.
Well, before you do that, I'll mark the Keep Yourself in God Love document, extracts. It's 2927.
Your Honour, Your Honour, I wonder if I might be heard just briefly on the tender. I've taken on board what Your Honour said.
On the branch organisation.
Yes, Your Honour. I wonder if Your Honour would be so good as just to accept the pages that have been referred to, but to still keep confidential those matters that have not been referred to. There's no public interest in those matters that have not been referred to. There's no purpose to be so.
I haven't read the whole document. I don't know.
No. Well, Your Honour, I imagine if they were relevant, my learned friend, counsel assisting, would have taken Mr. O'Brien to those matters. The concern is simply that they are confidential to branch committee members. They're not for general distribution within the branch itself. We would seek to maintain their
Are you telling me that members of the church don't know the rules that govern that church?
Your Honour, I suspect that they do, in the sense that they're probably told them, but the document itself is confidential. I can understand.
But if they know, then protecting it now is a little late, isn't it?
Well, Your Honour, not really, Your Honour. It's to protect that which is regarded as confidential within the organisation, and on the other hand, there is no public interest in members outside.
Well, I don't know about that because I haven't read the whole document, but I can understand that the bits that we've discussed so far fit into the context of the whole document. Look, I think you'd have to persuade me that there was any particular section that, by reason of the content, needed to be kept confidential before I'd take that step. You realise that Royal Commissions, by convention, work in public, and
Yes,
the public has a right to know
Yes, Your Honour.
what it is we're looking at, and in relation to the organisation for which you appear, how that organisation is structured and managed to deal with these sorts of problems.
Yes, Your Honour.
The rules of the organisation are obviously important.
Your Honour, and I don't argue against those parts which are relevant to the matters the Commission has to determine being made public. It's those parts which have not been referred to at all and which would not be of any assistance to the Commission, which I seek to protect.
Well, at the moment that doesn't help me because I haven't read the whole document,
No.
and you haven't given me any content beyond the fact that they haven't been referred to, and therefore they shouldn't be.
Understood, Your Honour. If Your Honour would be so good as to give us the opportunity to put a brief submission in writing, which Your Honour can then consider at Your Honour's leisure, if Your Honour rules against me on that point, then so be it. Of course, we'd accept the ruling, but if Your Honour would give us that opportunity, I'd be grateful.
Mr. Stewart?
Well, Your Honour, I would certainly resist any restriction on the document for two reasons. First, I too haven't had the opportunity to consider the whole of the document, so I'm not sure what other aspects are necessary.
Should we leave it on the basis Mr. Tockley puts it, that we'll keep what hasn't been referred to confidential at this stage, subject to him persuading us with a written submission?
I'm content to deal with it on that basis with some time frame. You know.
Well then, I'll make the document Exhibit 2928. And in terms of what's been referred to, if I look at the index, and I seem to have a page missing, there must be a...
Chapters 1, 2 and 3 were referred to, Your Honour.
1, 2 and 3. I would have thought, and any of you have to be relevant. Tockley, would that be right?
Yes, Your Honour.
So what about, and I haven't looked at the content, what about
Chapters 7
5,
and 8.
7, 5 and 7?
Yes, 5 and 7.
Mr. Tockley?
Your Honour, I can't see how 5 or 7 would assist in the sense that, by looks of it, for example, under 5, it deals with accounting matters, allowances,
Well, its
auditing.
heading is Publishing Committee, which I assume means the publication of educational and other material?
I think, Your Honour, it deals with the financial aspects of such matters.
I don't know.
No, that's why I seek the permission.
What about 7?
7 is in relation to organisational matters. 7 may be relevant to Your Honour's purposes, and I don't seek to argue against that.
What about 8?
I'd have to review 8, Your Honour, to make sure.
What I'll
it's
do at
not-
the moment is I'll allow publication of chapters 1, 2, 3 and 7, and if you can give me and the Commissioner a submission tomorrow, I'll rule in chambers in relation to the matter on Friday.
Thank you, Your Honour.
All right. So the document, the whole document is 29, 28, but I order that the chapters other than 1, 2, 3 and 7 at this stage not be published. Yes.
I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honour.
Anyone else? Any questions?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. Thank you.
Ms. David?
Thank you. Mr O'Brien, my name is David, Ms David, and I appear on behalf of BCG in these proceedings. Just one area of concern that in my view has been highlighted through these proceedings, and that is the manner in which the scriptures are used to assist a victim. I want to, of course, it's accepted that it is an important part of the healing process.
Particularly spiritually, yes.
Spiritually, yes. Again, I want to emphasise that I would think that you would agree that the Commission proceedings highlight the need for a comprehensive approach, including spiritual, that must have psychological or other care given to the particular person abused, so not just spiritual guidance.
True, yes, agree.
What concerns me, and I don't mean any of this as a criticism, but what concerns me is the way in which sometimes the scriptures have been used. For example, in the case of BCG, she has given evidence that she doesn't recall, in her particular case, receiving any scriptural guidance other than that she was essentially told in a letter from head office to keep her tears in a bottle. And that particular document is Tender Bundle 30, and perhaps if that can be brought up, please. This was in response to a very long and rather a letter from a clearly distressed victim of abuse, in which she talked about the fact that she had been essentially had a life sentence by reason of the abuse on her, and she spoke about her sister. She was clearly distressed. I won't repeat all the distress, but it's obvious. But in the response, she was essentially told, if you would agree, in paragraph 2 of that letter, firstly, she was told, always throw your burden on Jehovah. And then she was told that the heart-warming prayer of David is appropriate, where he entreated Jehovah to preserve his tears in his skin bottle. Now, it's clear from her evidence that the manner in which she understood that was to silence her, to bottle it up. So what I'm asking you is how you see the organisation perhaps addressing how those scriptures are ministered to ensure that victims don't improperly internalise a bit of scripture to the point where they believe they have to bottle their pain, for example, as in this case.
Yes, so if that's how she interpreted it, it's a shame because it
Yeah, Dr. Jason Morrison, theologist again. I just want to say thank you for watching the videos, and I hope you got plenty of self-rediscovery and freedom out of it. If you watched it on YouTube, please share or like, maybe even comment. If you watched it on Facebook, like, comment, share. But most of all, get out and live. This isn't a rehearsal. You've got a one-off life. Don't let your loyalty and your faithfulness blind you to the life that you should be experiencing. Till the next video, thank you for watching, and bye for now.